Hello and welcome back to the Smash Archive, the series where we look at every franchise featured in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. We're now rapidly approaching the end of this series, but just before we reach the last stop, there's one more group of franchises left to look at, that being all of the minor third-party series. Now, to give specifics, just in case you're not fully sure what this is about, we're specifically going to be looking at all of the third-party series that are featured in Smash, which are not owned by any of the 7 companies we've already done dedicated videos for. Those being Sega, Capcom, Bandai Namco, Square Enix, SNK, Konami, and Microsoft. The only one that won't be covered that falls under this category is Supergiant Games' Hades, as I've already discussed the content pulled from that series in the bonus episode, which covered all the spirits that were added in the 5th anniversary Spirit Board events. With the pre-ramble out of the way, let's get things started. In 1985, at the Doronitsyn Computer Center of the Academy of Sciences, a Soviet software engineer named Alexei Pazhanov would program a puzzle game for the Electronica 60, which consisted of having to create as many horizontal lines as possible out of constantly falling tetraminos, geometric shapes made up of 4 squares connected together, with him deciding to call the game Tetris, the name coming from combining the words tetra, the prefix for 4, and Pazhanov's favourite sport, tennis. Impressed by his work, the game would be adapted for IBM computers with floppy disk copies of Tetris then spreading all across Moscow, and through various deals, the game would go on to spread throughout Eastern Europe, and from there, it would quickly spread across the world on various consoles and computers, though Pazhanov wouldn't get any cut of the profits from most of these early ports of the game. Tetris would then reach unprecedented levels of success when in 1989, a Dutch-born American game designer and entrepreneur, Henk Rogers, managed to arrange a deal to acquire the rights to Tetris and convinced Minoru Arakawa, the then president of Nintendo of America, to make it both a launch title and the pack-in game for the American and European release of the Game Boy, a move which is widely credited for the handheld's incredibly strong success, especially when compared to its competition like the Sega Game Gear and Atari Lynx. In 1996, both Pazhanov and Rogers would work together to create the Tetris Company, which pretty much solely exists to license out the Tetris IP to various studios, with there currently being over 200 different versions of the title, which include renditions like the visually and rhythmically reactive Tetris Effect, the Battle Royale game Tetris 99, and even a couple of crossover games with Sega's Puyo Puyo series, with Tetris easily standing as both the most popular puzzle game series and one of the most iconic and best-selling game franchises of all time. Because of how unfathomably popular it is, there's a good amount of content from Tetris. First we have 2 music tracks, both of which are arrangements from Brawl, with Tetris Type A, the first selectable song from the Game Boy version of Tetris, which itself is a rendition of the Russian poem turned folk song Korobayniki, Tetris Type B, the second selectable song from Tetris's Game Boy rendition. there's 5 spirits, all of which take their spirit artwork from Tetris 99. Number 1351, Tetramino, a 1-slot ace primary attack spirit. The light blue shape which takes the form of a straight line, with it being the only piece in a traditional game that can clear 4 lines in one go, which is called a Tetris. The Tetramino is also sometimes referred to as the straight, stick, or long piece. Number 1352, Tetramino, a 2-slot advanced support spirit with the effect Screen Flip immunity. The purple block, which consists of 3 Minos in a row, with the 4th being placed above the center, with it serving as the most versatile piece, even coming with its own form of tech consisting of getting it into tight spaces by spinning it, the maneuver being called a T-spin. Number 1353, S-Tetramino and Z-Tetramino, a 2-slot advanced primary grab spirit. The green and red pieces, which are composed of 2 stacked horizontal Daiminos, with the top being offset by 1 to the left or right. These two often being viewed as the most awkward pieces to use, given their odd shape and tendency to leave gaps. They're sometimes referred to as the snake or skew pieces. Number 1354, L-Tetramino and J-Tetramino, a 2-slot advanced support spirit with the effect Irreversible Controls. The blue and orange pieces, which feature a similar build to the T-Tetramino, but with the top Mino now being on the far left or right, with them generally being a sort of middle ground piece, not being as versatile or useful as the I or T, but at the same time not as awkward or situational as the S and Z. Both pieces have also been called the gun shapes, with the J-Tetramino specifically sometimes being called the inverted L. And number 1355, O-Tetramino, a slotless novice primary shield spirit. The yellow shape, which takes the form of a perfect square, in turn making it the only piece that doesn't change from being rotated, it being the easiest to use at the cost of leaving gaps on a regular terrain as it can't fill spaces the size of 1 Mino. It's also sometimes called the square or block. The Kunio-kun series is a long-running franchise that was started by Technos Japan, who are otherwise mostly known for the Double Dragon series, with Kunio-kun getting its start in 1986 with the arcade game Nekketsu Kōha Kunio-kun, or roughly in English, Hot-Blooded Tough Guy Kunio. The title being a beat-em-up game which sees the titular high school delinquent take on various street gangs after they beat up his best friend Hiroshi, the premise taking inspiration from a mix of the high school experiences of the game's creator, Yoshihisa Kishimoto, and various Bruce Lee movies, primarily 1973's Enter the Dragon. The title would not only prove to do incredibly well, becoming one of the best performing arcade cabinets in Japan during its release window, but it's also widely regarded as being the game that provided the template for near enough every beat-em-up game that has come out since, not inventing the genre, but leaving an undeniable impact on it, with its success leading to the game getting several sequels, home ports, and sports game spin-offs. Albeit, when some of these games were brought over from Japan, they would end up getting altered in the localization to Americanize them, with the first game transitioning into Renegade, along with titles like Nekketsu High School Dodgeball Club and Downtown Nekketsu Story becoming Super Dodgeball and River City Ransom. Eventually, Technos Japan would go bankrupt in 1996, due to most of their later games failing to reach the same level of popularity both Kunio-kun and Double Dragon did. And as of 2015, all of the rights to their various series have been owned by Arc System Works, who you'll likely recognize as the company responsible for the Guilty Gear and Blaze Blue series of fighting games. And they've managed to keep the Kunio-kun series going to this day, most notably with the River City Girls games, a pair of spin-offs made by Way Forward which put the girlfriends of Kunio and his rival Ricky in the lead roles. Despite Kunio-kun's popularity in Japan, as well as specifically River City Ransom's popularity in the West, the only content pulled from the series are 4 spirits that were added as part of a spirit board event towards the start of 2020. Number 1394, Kunio, a slotless ace primary attack spirit with the effect battering items power up. A righteous delinquent from Nekketsu High School and the titular main protagonist of the series, who in the first game fights his way through the Bozozuko biker gang, a gang from the all-girls school Taiyo Academy, and the Sanwakai Yakuza. The artwork is taken from River City Ransom, where a few months after the events of the original game, he ends up getting involved in a scenario where students from Reiho Academy have been taking control of neighbouring high schools by defeating their strongest delinquents, resulting in him having to fight his way across town to Reiho. Number 1395, Ricky, a slotless advanced primary shield spirit with the effect Fist Attack Up, the top delinquent of Hanazono High School and Kunio's rival turned best friend, his debut appearance being in the first Kunio-kun game, where he served as the title's first boss. The artwork is taken from River City Ransom, where he ends up having to team up with Kunio due to him being the next target of Reiho Academy after the students from the school kidnapped his girlfriend, Mami Shimada. Number 1396, Goda, a 2-slot novice support spirit with the effect Insta-Drop, a third-year student from Hoyo High School that despite being his school's strongest fighter, doesn't have any aspirations of being a delinquent, and instead is rather popular due to his kind nature and sense of justice. He first showed up in River City Ransom, where he was forced to fight Kunio and Ricky as a boss at the entrance to Reiho Academy, after the school's gang kidnapped his younger sister, Sayori. And number 1397, Ryuichi and Ryuji, a 3-slot ace primary neutral spirit with the effect Foot Attack Up. The twin Hattori brothers, also known as the Double Dragon Brothers, who serve as the main antagonistic force of River City Ransom, the pair managing to take over Reiho Academy before moving on to do the same at various other schools. After the two are defeated by Kunio and Ricky, they respect the pair's strength before revealing that this whole time they'd actually been following orders given to them by Kunio's former childhood friend, Taiki Yamada. In 1984, developer William Ralph Wright would work on his first ever game titled Raid at Bungling Bay for the Commodore 64, during which he ended up finding himself getting more enjoyment from messing around with the game's level creator than actually playing it. This would end up inspiring him to independently create his own game called SimCity, which sees you build and create your own city however you see fit, whilst using the taxes from the people and businesses living in the aforementioned city to expand it. Despite finishing development of the game in 1984, it wouldn't hit store shelves for another 4 years, as due to the game lacking any arcade or action elements that were in style at the time, along with not really having a win or lose state, no publishers were interested in releasing the game out of fear no one would want to play it, until eventually Maxis, who at this point had only made one other game with 1988's Sky Chase, would end up accepting to do so in 1989. The game initially seeing release for MS-DOS, Macintosh, and Amiga computers. Whilst the game would initially bomb, thanks to positive word of mouth from Game Press, the title would end up selling millions of copies, with it receiving multiple awards along with effectively pioneering the urban simulator genre, along with helping raise Maxis' profile in the gaming space, until eventually being bought by and made a division of EA in 1997. SimCity would not only see multiple sequels and spin-offs, but would also kickstart the greater Sim series, most of which would more or less be the same thing as SimCity, but focused on specific types of buildings and ecosystems, with SimCity remaining the most popular of these various sim-likes until the 2000s, which saw the introduction of the life simulation series The Sims, with the last major SimCity game being 2013's SimCity, with the franchise not seeing a new game in any capacity since 2014. While SimCity has arguably lost a lot of its relevance to its more popular sister series, there's still a couple of things taken from the franchise. To start off, there's the assist trophy Dr. Wright, a character that was specifically created for the original SimCity's Super Nintendo port, which was actually licensed and developed in-house by Nintendo and was a launch title for the system in America, with him offering the player advice on how to improve their city. When summoned, Dr. Wright will wave his baton around, causing 3 skyscrapers to pop out of the ground, which launch fighters upwards. In addition, there's spirit number 1149, Dr. Wright, a 3-slot ace support spirit which lets you start the battle with an ore club. Due to the fact he's a Nintendo-owned character from a non-Nintendo-owned franchise, Dr. Wright hasn't made many other appearances outside of his recurring role as an assist trophy, only fulfilling his advisor role again in the Japan-exclusive SimCity 64, as well as having small cameo appearances in some Zelda games, namely Link's Awakening, Oracle of Seasons, and the Minish Cap. Releasing for Japanese computers in 1994, The Tower is a management simulation game developed and published by OpenBook. The idea for the game coming from one Yutaka Saito, also known as Ute Saito, who ended up pursuing game development after playing SimCity on a Macintosh while attending university, with it seeing you need to build up a skyscraper, choosing what facilities go on each floor, all whilst keeping the tenants happy by appeasing their wants and needs. The game ended up doing very well in terms of both reviews and sales, with Maxis eventually stepping in to publish an international release of the title, which would also see the game be rebranded as part of their Sim series under the new name of Sim Tower: The Vertical Empire, with Japan also receiving console ports for both the Sega Saturn and 3DO. The Tower would later see a sequel in 1998 called The Tower 2, though on top of being developed after OpenBook had merged with the company 9003 to form OpenBook 9003, the international release was instead published by Sega and was renamed to Ute Tower. And in 2005, the successor studio to OpenBook, Vivarium, who you might recognize as the developers of Seaman, made a revised version of the first game for the Game Boy Advance, titled The Tower SP, which was published by Nintendo in Japan and Sega in North America, with what is currently the last game in the series, The Tower DS, releasing in 2008 for the DS, this time being published by Digitoys Inc., with the only things done with the franchise since then being some iOS ports in the early 2010s. As this is a somewhat forgotten management series that most people probably only even know about thanks to it being rebranded as a Sims game outside Japan, the only thing taken from the tower is one spirit, namely spirit number 1189, Yama, a 1-slot novice support spirit with the effect Aura Attack Up, the boss and CEO of the Yamanoichi Group, the construction company responsible for building the tower in The Tower SP, with him being the one who tasks and provides the funds for you to build it. Yeah! In 1995, the French-based publisher Ubisoft would release the first game made by their then new in-house developer UB Pictures, now called Ubisoft Montpellier, which was a 2D platformer named after the game's main protagonist, Rayman, who ends up being tasked by the fairy Patilla to save the valley after the Great Protoon and the Electoons that used to orbit it are captured by the evil Mr. Dark. Whilst it would first release for the Atari Jaguar, thanks to it being a launch title for both the US and European release of the original PlayStation, Rayman would quickly be cemented as both a gaming icon and Ubisoft's mascot, with the PlayStation release alone selling around 4 million copies, making it the system's 17th best-selling game, with it also specifically being the system's best-selling title in the UK and second best in France, where it was only beaten by the original Gran Turismo. The series would soon after get various other ports to multiple systems, spin-offs, and 2 full-blown sequels with Rayman 2 The Great Escape in 1999 and Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc in 2003. but for the rest of the 2000s, the series would be mostly relegated to various spin-offs and a certain side series that we'll get to later. And despite making a fairly big comeback in the early 2010s with Rayman Origins and Legends, both of which were met with heavy critical praise, outside of a few mobile games and re-releases of the previous titles, the series has effectively been dormant since Rayman Legends came out in 2013, though this hasn't stopped a heavy push from fans to get the limbless hero back in the spotlight someday. Despite its fairly strong popularity in the West, the only thing taken from the series is a spirit, with number 1285, Rayman, a 3-slot ace primary neutral spirit with the effect Jump Up. The main protagonist of the series, whose iconic limbless design actually came about due to technical issues from the systems at the time, making it impossible to render his limbs due to a lack of processing power. The artwork is taken from Rayman Legends Definitive Edition, the Nintendo Switch port of Rayman Legends, which released in 2017, which features an expanded version of the Kung Foot mode and all of the alternate costumes that were originally exclusive to specific platforms. Culdcept is a series of RPGs made by developer Omiya Soft, which has been going since 1997, the original game releasing exclusively in Japan for the Sega Saturn. It's seeing you play as a scepter, people who have the power to use pages of the Book of Creation, dubbed the Culdcept, in the form of cards, with its gameplay being a sort of hybrid between a Monopoly-like board game and a Magic the Gathering-style card game, where you roll a die to move around a board and summon monsters to protect your properties, with other players having to either pay a toll or attempt to take over the space by battling the monster with their own summoned beast. In addition to later seeing an expanded version on the PlayStation, as well as a much later DS port, it would also see a few sequels, with 2001's Culdcept Second for the Dreamcast, which itself got an expanded version for the PlayStation 2 that marked the first time the series released in America, 2006's Culdcept Saga for the Xbox 360, as well as 2012's Culdcept and 2016's Culdcept Revolt, which both released for the 3DS, with Revolt marking the first and so far only time the series saw release in PAL regions, with the games generally being positively received thanks to its unique gameplay and strategic depth, albeit it's always remained somewhat niche due to its high learning curve, difficulty, and use of luck-based elements. Despite not being a massively popular series, there's actually a good amount of content from Culdcept, most likely due to the Japanese releases of the 3DS entries being published by Nintendo. To begin, we have 3 music tracks, with a Smash 4 remix of the title screen music for Culdcept 2012, Revolt Striking for Hope, the title theme for Culdcept Revolt, and Worthy Rival Battle, one of the battle themes from Culdcept Revolt. On top of that is 3 spirits. Number 1269, Cauldra, a 2-slot ace support spirit with the effect Poison Immunity. The goddess responsible for creating the Culdcept, but after the book was stolen and its power was misused by the god Baltius, Cauldra destroyed the book, with its pages becoming the various cards you use throughout the series, with anyone who manages to gather all the pages becoming the god of a new world. Her artwork is taken from Culdcept 2012, where she sees a prophecy of a scepter named Gemini that could end up destroying the world were they to gain the power of the Culdcept. Number 1270, Goligan, a 1-slot advanced support spirit with the effect Weapon Attack Up. A magical staff created by Cauldra, who across the series is often used as a way for Cauldra to reach out to the game's main protagonist for help with the current predicament, along with teaching them how to use the pages of the Culdcept. Like with Cauldra, the artwork is taken from Culdcept 2012, where he fulfills the same purpose, being sent to find a scepter that can stop Gemini. And number 1271, Alan, a 3-slot advanced primary neutral spirit. The main protagonist of Culdcept Revolt, who was found unconscious and with amnesia on the streets of Southus by the leader of the rebellious group, Freebats. The story following him uses power as a scepter to help in the Freebats in their battle against the oppressive rule of Count Kranis. Releasing in 2001, initially as a PS2 exclusive, Zero, renamed to Fatal Frame in America and Project Zero in Power Regions, is a survival horror game made by Tecmo, the same studio responsible for the Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive series, which would later merge with Koei to form Koei Tecmo in 2009. The game following Miku Hinasaki, a young girl that's susceptible to the paranormal, who explores the abandoned Himura mansion to try and find her brother after he goes missing, needing to solve puzzles and utilize a special camera called the Camera Obscura to fight off the attacking spirits. The original game taking inspiration from Tecmo's own Deception series, Konami's Silent Hill, and various Japanese horror and war films. The game ended up doing remarkably well, especially in the West, likely thanks to the then recent wave in popularity of Japanese horror films such as The Ring, which in addition to leading to a port for the original Xbox, also convinced Tecmo to make it a franchise, resulting in 4 sequels as well as a spin-off game for the 3DS and a Wii remake of the second game. The last new entry to release being 2014's Fatal Frame Maiden of Black Water, which was originally a Wii U exclusive before getting ported to all modern platforms in 2021. The series as a whole managing to sell over 1 million copies, along with being adapted to manga and a live-action movie. It currently standing as an icon within the horror game scene and one of Koei Tecmo's most famous franchises. Thanks to that legacy, along with Nintendo assisting in the development and publishing of the series starting with the 4th entry in 2008, there's a decent amount of content from Fatal Frame. To start things off, there's the assist trophy, Yori Kozukata, the main protagonist of the most recent entry, Maiden of Blackwater, her being a 19-year-old girl who developed a sixth sense to see ghosts after managing to survive a car accident that killed the rest of her family. When summoned, she'll take out her Camera Obscura and attempt to use it to take pictures of fighters, with any that get caught in the viewfinder being left stunned and inflicted with poison damage, Yuri taking 3 pictures before disappearing. In addition, there's 2 spirits. Number 1240, Mio and Mayu Amakura, a 1-slot advanced support spirit with the effect Poison Damage Reduced. A pair of twin sisters who serve as the leads for Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly. The story seeing Mio search for Mayu after the pair get trapped in the ghost-filled Minakami village, which was cursed to vanish as a result of a failed ritual. The spirit artwork comes from the game's Wii remake. And number 1241, Yori Kozukata, a 1-slot ace support spirit with the effect Slumber Immunity. After the incident that took her family, Yori would end up being taken in by antique store owner Hisoka Kurosawa, after she saved Yori from committing suicide, with the game seeing her be forced to explore the infamously haunted Mount Hikami when Hisoka goes missing in the area. Coming out in 2002, Shantae is a platformer that released exclusively for the Game Boy Color and was made by WayForward, who at the time were a fairly unknown name in the gaming landscape, but have since become known for titles like Mighty Switch Force, Advance Wars 1+2, Reboot Camp, and the previously mentioned River City Girls series. The title following the titular Half-Genie as she goes on a quest to save Sequin Land from the evil pirate Risky Boots, along the way learning dances from guardian genies that allow her to transform into various animal forms, which can be used to explore new areas and bypass certain obstacles. Despite the game getting critical acclaim, sometimes being regarded as one of the best games for the system, Shantae was a commercial failure, one of the main reasons cited being that it was a Game Boy Color exclusive that came out 1 year after the Game Boy Advance had already released. And because of that, despite the team starting development on a sequel for the Game Boy Advance titled Shantae Advance Risky Revolution, it was ultimately cancelled due to there being no publishers interested in funding it due to the first game bombing. Eventually, the series would return in 2010 with Shantae Risky's Revenge, which launched as a downloadable DSiWare game, and since then, the series has seen fairly consistent support, with both ports of the first 2 games on various platforms, as well as 3 more games, with 2014's Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, 2016's Shantae Half-Genie Hero, and 2019's Shantae and the Seven Sirens, with the cancelled Shantae Advance even getting revived, it being set to release at some point in 2025, with the series being viewed as WayForward's flagship franchise and altogether has managed to sell over 3 million copies. Given Shantae is a very popular franchise within the indie scene, with her being a frequently requested character for Smash, there's a decent amount of content from the series. Starting things off, we have Burning Town, a recurring track throughout the series which plays during the opening sequence where Shantae's home of Scuttletown is under attack, with Smash specifically using the version from Half-Genie Hero. Next is a Mii Brawler outfit based on Shantae, who within the story of the original game is the child of a human father and a guardian genie mother, who wishes to prove her worth as the guardian genie for her home of Skulltown, despite her half-genie status resulting in her having more limited magical powers. Finally, there's 2 spirits, both of which take their artwork from Half-Genie Hero. Number 1296, Shantae, a 3-slot Ace primary grab spirit with the effect Magic Attack Up. Outside of her various journeys to stop Risky Boots, she's also constantly getting fired and rehired as Skulltown's guardian genie, with her usually losing the position thanks to Risky's attacks on the place. And number 1297, Risky Boots, a 1-slot advanced support spirit which lets you start the battle with a Bob-omb. The main antagonist of the series and the self-appointed Queen of the Seven Seas, that leads a pirate crew of shadow creatures called Tinkerbats, the first game seeing her steal a steam engine during a raid on Skulltown, kicking off a race against Shantae to gather the 4 elemental stones needed to indefinitely power it. Originally starting life as a potential concept for a Rayman 4, Rayman Raving Rabbids is a party game spin-off that initially released as a launch title for the Wii, before later being ported to PC, PlayStation 2, and Xbox 360, which sees Rayman being forced to complete various mini-games for the amusement of a bunch of psychotic rabbit-like creatures called the Rabbids. Not only did the game prove popular enough to get multiple sequels, but the Rabbids themselves proved to be popular to the point that they not only fully took over the series, starting with 2009's Rabbids Go Home, but would also effectively replace Rayman as Ubisoft's mascot, with them getting multiple cameos in Ubisoft's other titles, a TV show, a comic book series, and even a duology of strategy RPGs that doubled as crossovers with Super Mario, and easily getting far more attention than Rayman has gotten from Ubisoft, even if some would argue that the Rabbids solo output has never reached the same levels as Rayman's in terms of quality. Since the franchise mostly consists of various party games, along with Smash considering the Mario plus Rabbids games as solely part of the Mario franchise, the only things taken from this series is a Mii hat based on the head of a rabbid, the hat's design of the Mii's face being within the mouth, most likely being in reference to the creature's tendency for screaming. For our final Ubisoft series for the day, we have what has probably become their most popular franchise in recent years, with Assassin's Creed, a series of action stealth games that has seen regular installments since the first entry released in 2007 for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, along with a later PC port. The franchise following the millennia-spanning struggle between the Order of Assassins and the Knights Templar, most games having you control a modern-day member of the Order, along with one of their ancestors, the plot mixing in its fictional ongoing story with loose retellings of real-world historical events from across different time periods and locations, such as the Italian Renaissance, the Golden Age of Piracy, and Sengoku period Japan. Across its 14 mainline entries and various spin-offs and side games, the Assassin's Creed series has collectively sold over 200 million copies, making it both Ubisoft's best-selling series as well as one of the best-selling game franchises of all time, and eventually expanding into a full-blown media franchise with comics, novels, and a live-action film, with each entry typically being very well received critically, with most of the only complaints it sees being the frequent presence of bugs, along with a general feeling of oversaturation during its time as an annual franchise. Despite Assassin's Creed's overwhelming presence in the modern gaming landscape, much like the other Ubisoft series in Smash, only one thing was taken, this time being a Mii sword fighter costume based on Altair, the historical assassin from the very first game, which is set in the Holy Land during the Third Crusade in the late 12th century, who after botching a job to steal an artifact from the Templars, is tasked with killing 9 targets to redeem himself in the eyes of the Order, with the sword being his personal blade, which the player is able to use after successfully assassinating his 7th target. No More Heroes is a series of action hack-and-slash games that are published by Marvelous, who are mostly known as the current owners of the Harvest Moon or Story of Seasons franchise, and were developed by Grasshopper Manufacturer Inc., who alongside the studio's founder, Goichi Suda, better known as Suda51, are also known for titles such as The Silver Case, Killer 7, and Lollipop Chainsaw. The series debuting in 2007 as an exclusive for the Wii, the title following Travis Touchdown, who after running out of money from winning an online auction for a beam katana, ends up getting roped into fighting his way through a ranked association of assassins. Whilst the game underperformed in Japan, it proved to be a fairly strong hit in the West, with it getting a sequel also on Wii, and ports of the original game for the PS3 and Xbox 360 in 2010, along with a mobile game in 2012. The series would then go on hiatus for quite a while, before returning in 2019 with the side game Travis Strikes Again, which was then followed by No More Heroes 3 in 2021, both games releasing as timed exclusives for the Nintendo Switch, before later being ported to other platforms, with Switch and PC ports of the first 2 games coming out around the same time. Given the series' heavy association with Nintendo, along with its main protagonist being another one that's been heavily requested for Smash, there's a decent amount of content from No More Heroes. First up, we've got a Mii sword fighter costume based on Travis Touchdown, an otaku and wrestling fan who serves as the series' main protagonist. The costume specifically being based on his design from Travis Strikes Again, which was the most recent game at the time of the costume's inclusion. Then alongside that are 3 spirits. Number 1494, Travis Touchdown, a 2-slot advanced primary attack spirit which can be enhanced at level 99. The spirit artwork is taken from No More Heroes 3, where he ends up having to battle his way through the galactic superhero ranking in order to save the Earth from an alien invasion. Number 1495, Full Armor Travis Full Green Mode, a 2-slot Ace primary attack spirit with the effect Made of Metal. The full armor is a tokusatsu style transformation Travis can take in No More Heroes 3, which gives him access to more attacks and weapons, full green mode being the armor's second form, which he can take by landing triple green 7s on the slash reel, which allows him to use a missile barrage and a short-ranged tiger-shaped attack. And number 1496, Fu, Jess Baptiste VI, a 1-slot Ace support spirit with the effect Undamaged Attack and Speed Up, the supreme leader of the galactic superhero corps and main antagonist of No More Heroes 3, who crash-landed on Earth 20 years prior to the game's events and had help to escape from a kid named Daemon, with him then returning in the present to take over the Earth with an alliance he formed whilst he was in Black Hole Prison for destroying a planet, disguising his intergalactic army by using the cover story of them being superheroes. Originally releasing for PC in 2013, Warframe is a free-to-play multiplayer shooter made by Digital Extremes, who are otherwise mostly known for co-developing Epic Games' Unreal series. The game seeing you play as members of an ancient warrior race called the Tenno, who awaken from centuries of suspended animation far into the future, where they find themselves at war with various factions across the Origin system. Their main method of fighting back being to utilize biomechanical suits called Warframes that can help channel their unique abilities. Whilst the game got fairly mixed reviews on release, it still managed to amass a large audience, with it regularly ranking as one of the most played games on Steam, with a player base reported to be in the millions, largely in part thanks to both the game itself being free to play, and since its original PC release, it has since been ported to all other major consoles and iOS, along with the game constantly receiving new content and expansions to this day. Its long-standing support and quality of the expansions even winning the game a handful of awards. Whilst Warframe is incredibly popular, the only content from the game in Smash are a couple of spirits that were added as part of a spirit board event focused on characters with a black color scheme. The ones added being number 1402, Lotus, a 3-slot advanced primary neutral spirit which can be enhanced at level 99, a mysterious figure who serves as mission control for the Tenno, helping to guide them throughout the various missions and advise them on incoming enemy units, and number 1403, Natar, a 3-slot Ace primary neutral spirit with the effect Transformation Duration Up. This is a name and form Lotus had while she was a member of the Sentient, a race of self-replicating machines that were created by the long-dead Orokin civilization, who after causing the fall of the Orokin Empire, decided to defect from her people and became the mother of the Tenno when she couldn't go through with killing them, leading her to take on her current identity of the Lotus. Originally releasing as a Wii U exclusive in 2013, The Wonderful 101 is an action title made by Platinum Games and published by Nintendo. The game seeing you control a group of superheroes called the Wonderful 100 as they fight to save the planet from a group of alien invaders called the Geth Jerk. The heroes possessing a power called Unite Morphs, which lets them link together to form giant objects for both combat and puzzle solving. The game would end up being received very well by critics, and whilst it didn't sell amazingly, only being confirmed to have sold at least 79,000 copies in America and Japan, it's still often viewed as an iconic title from the Wii U's library. Even though the original Wii U release was published by Nintendo, a remaster for the Switch, PS4, and PC would end up being Platinum's first self-published game, primarily being funded through a Kickstarter campaign and eventually released in 2020. And whilst this would create some confusion as to who actually owned the rights to the game, in 2024 Platinum would end up fully obtaining the Wonderful 101 trademark from Nintendo, and in turn confirming them as the series owner. Given the game's heavy association with the Wii U, along with Nintendo having at least partially owned it at some point in time, there's a decent amount of content from the Wonderful 101. First, we have two music tracks. STO1 Roll Out Wonderful 100, which plays during the game's first stage in the Blossom City outskirts. And Jaginga Planet Destruction Form, which plays during the final boss fight against Jaginga. Then there's Two Spirits. Number 1283, Wonder Red, a one-slot advanced primary grab spirit, the game's main protagonist and a rookie member of the 100, who has made the group's leader during the Gethjerk's third invasion of Earth, his real identity being mild-mannered elementary school teacher Will Wedgeworth. And number 1284, Wonder Blue, as one-slot novice primary attack spirit, one of the main members of the Wonderful 100, who's a cocky show-off with a lack of respect for authority, having a rivalry with Red due to him not earning Blue's respect despite being the group's leader. His true identity is LAPD detective Elliot Hooker. Initially releasing in 2014 for PC, Wii U, and the 3DS, Shovel Knight is a 2D platformer made by indie studio Yacht Club Games, which was funded via a Kickstarter campaign that managed to raise around $300,000 from a goal of $75,000. It following the titular Shovel Knight as he travels across the plains to defeat the Order of No Quarter and reach the Tower of Fate after it gets unsealed by an evil enchantress. But the whole game being a throwback to the NES, with 8-bit graphics, chiptune soundtrack, along with design aspects of the game taking inspiration from titles such as Zelda 2, Super Mario Bros. 3, and the Mega Man series. Shovel Knight would end up doing incredibly well, getting positive reviews, ports to the Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox, along with Shovel Knight himself becoming an unofficial mascot for indie games as a whole, with the title later seeing several updates that added 3 additional campaigns and a multiplayer battle mode, along with 2 spin-off games with 2021's Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon and 2022's Shovel Knight Dig. Since this game made big waves in the indie scene, along with the fact the game was initially a console exclusive for Nintendo, there's a good amount of content from Shovel Knight. To start off, there's the Assist Trophy, Shovel Knight, the game's titular main protagonist whose campaign has since been retitled Shovel of Hope. When summoned, he'll attack fires by either digging up the ground, damaging enemies with both the shovel and the dirt that gets flung up, or by jumping in the air and dropping down on them. On top of that, Shovel Knight also has the chance chance to spawn some healing items when he digs up the ground, namely either food, Maxim tomatoes, or heart containers. Then in addition to that, there's 5 spirits. Number 1264, Shovel Knight, a 2-slot ace primary attack spirit. Within the game's story, Shovel Knight was a hero who lost his spirit for adventure after losing his partner whilst exploring the Tower of Fate, but then leaving his new life of solitude behind to restore peace to the world by defeating the evil enchantress and her army of knights called the Order of No Quarter. Number 1265, Shield Knight, a 2-slot advanced support spirit with the effect Weapon Resist Up. Shovel Knight's former partner that would go on adventures with him until, as mentioned before, they disappeared during the pair's exploration of the Tower of Fate. Occasionally, at certain points throughout the game, Shovel Knight will have dreams where he tries to save a falling Shield Knight. Number 1266, Plague Knight, a 1-slot novice support spirit with the effect Fire and Explosion Attack Up. One of the members of the Order of No Quarter that has an affinity for brewing potions and explosives, with Shovel Knight battling him in his lab called the Explodatorium. Plague Knight is also the protagonist for the game's Plague of Shadows campaign, where he attempts to make the ultimate potion out of the essences of the Order's other members. Number 1267, King Knight, a 1-slot novice primary shield spirit with the effect Wait Up. Another Order member that, despite his name, isn't actually a king, just a king-themed knight who rules over a fortified tower called Pridemore Keep. He is also the lead character for the King of Cards campaign, which details the story of how King Knight took over Pridemore Keep and joined the Order of No Quarter. And number 1268, Spectre Knight, a 2-slot advanced primary attack spirit. The most begrudgingly loyal member of the Order that watches over the Lich Yard armed with a scythe and undead powers. He's also the protagonist for the Spectre of Torment campaign, which sees him being forced to gather up knights for the Enchantress in order to power a locket which can bring one person back to life. Releasing for PC in 2015, Undertale is an RPG that was almost entirely made by just one independent developer named Toby Fox, whose only previous game development work was a Halloween ROM hack for Earthbound he released in 2008, and was otherwise known for composing music for the webcomic series Homestuck, with the game getting funded via a Kickstarter campaign that managed to raise a bit over $50,000 from a $5,000 goal. The game sees a human child fall into the underground, a secluded part of the earth that houses various monsters, with a story following the child's journey to return to the surface, along the way interacting with the underground's many strange inhabitants. Undertale would prove to be a landmark title within the indie game scene, gaining acclaim for its Earthbound-inspired writing and humour, along with its bullet hell-like combat system, which also gives you the option to spare every enemy and boss in the game, the ending and final boss you face being dependent on how merciful you were on the way to the end, with the game later seeing ports to the PlayStation 4, PS Vita, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox One, along with getting a follow-up game titled Deltarune, which has seen episodic releases since 2018, with Toby Fox also being able to utilize his success to be hired as a composer for games like Little Town Hero, the Off remaster, as well as the 8th and 9th generation of Pokemon games. Given the game's iconography within the scope of indie games, as well as internet culture as a whole, there's a decent amount of content from Undertale. First, we have a music track with a new remix of Megalovania, which plays during the final boss fight of the game's genocide route against Sans. with the track also featuring a solo that incorporates parts of Heartache and Bone Trousel. In addition, there's a Me Gunner costume based on Sans. One of the most popular side characters to come from Undertale is a skeleton that is incredibly lazy, along with having a tendency to make bad puns and pull practical jokes, though certain dialogue exchanges also suggest he possesses some level of self-awareness, his name being in reference to how all his text boxes are written in the infamous font Comic Sans. The gun is based on a Gaster Blaster, a skull-like object that shoots lasers from its mouth, which Sans uses in his boss fight at the end of the game's genocide route, which is widely regarded as being one of the hardest fights in the game. Developed and published by indie developer Studio MDHR, Cuphead is a run-and-gun game which initially released in 2017 for both PC and Xbox One. The game tasking you to defeat various bosses across Inkwell Islands in order to get soul contracts which they owe to the devil, with it getting a lot of attention off the bat due to its hand-drawn art style reminiscent of rubber hose animation, which was popularized during the golden age of American animation by studios like Max Fleischer and Disney. Thanks to a mix of its unique look and difficult but rewarding gameplay, Cuphead was very heavily praised on release, proving popular enough to be ported to the Switch and PlayStation 4 in 2019 and 2020 respectively, along with getting a DLC expansion in 2022 titled The Delicious Last Course, and an animated show on Netflix consisting of 36 episodes, the title managing to collectively sell over 6 million copies. Given the game's immense popularity, which seems to have only gotten boosted with every re-release or new piece of content for it, there's a good amount of content taken from Cuphead. To start off, we have the music track Floral Fury, which is used for the fight against Cagney Carnation. Next is an outfit for Me Gunners based on Cuphead, the game's titular main protagonist, with the gun just being his hand, in reference to how after drinking a potion from his guardian, the Elder Kettle, he's able to shoot energy bullets from his index finger. Finally, there's 4 spirits. Number 1398, Cuphead, a 1-slot ace primary attack spirit with the effect shooting items power up. Within the game's story, the reason Cuphead is fighting any of these bosses is due to losing a bet to the devil, with him being forced to collect the soul contracts of debtors to him to avoid having his own soul taken. Number 1399, Mugman, a 1-slot ace primary shield spirit with the effect jump up. Cuphead's brother who served the role as the game's Player 2 character, with the option to play as him in single player being added in 2019, around the time the game was brought over to the Nintendo Switch. Number 1400, The Devil, a 2-slot advanced support spirit with the effect energy shot attack / resistance up, the ruler of Inkwell Island's underground and the game's main antagonist, who gets people to bet their souls on gambling games in exchange for getting a wish fulfilled, in Cuphead's case having betted all the loot in his casino. And number 1401, King Dice, a 1-slot novice support spirit with the effect undamaged speed up, the devil's right-hand man who pops up periodically to check that Cuphead and Mugman are keeping true to their word and collecting the soul contracts, with him appearing in the die houses that connect the various areas of Inkwell Island. Releasing in 2019, initially as a Switch exclusive, Daemon X Machina is a third-person shooter mecha game made by Marvelous. The game following a group called the Outers who pilot mechs called Arsenals, with them serving as humanity's protector against an AI army named the Arms of Immortals. The AI turning evil as a result of a mysterious energy being released after a moon collided with the planet, but the same energy also providing the Outers with special abilities, the gameplay being broken up into various missions documenting the Outers' battle against the rogue AI, with both the character you play as and the mech they pilot being fully customizable. Whilst the initial reviews of the game were fairly mixed, it apparently still managed to sell strong numbers, at least doing good enough to get a PC port in 2020, along with a sequel titled Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion getting announced a few years later, with the game being set to release in September of 2025 for the Switch 2, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series systems, and PC. As this game released after Smash Ultimate, the only content pulled from Daemon X Machina are 4 spirits that were added as part of a spirit board event to promote the game's release, which are number 1347, Radiant Gleam, a 2-slot advanced primary grab spirit with the effect Jump Up, an arsenal set manufactured by Sky Union which can be bought once the player reaches C rank in offer missions and has balanced stats across the board. The spirit artwork also features the game's customizable main protagonist, sometimes referred to as simply the Rookie. Number 1348, Cluster Grief, a 2-slot ace support spirit with the effect First Strike Advantage. The Cluster is a speed-type combat unit that was designed to excel in all situations, with no regard for how easy it is to actually pilot it. This is the mech used by Grief, the leader of the Outers merc group Terrors and the top-ranked Arsenal pilot, being the only one that's managed to reach EX rank. Number 1349, Bullet Walker Brigadier General, a 3-slot ace primary shield spirit with the effect Shooting Items Power Up. The Bullet Walker is an all-purpose combat arsenal that's fairly dependent on the pilot's own experience to get results, with it being the arsenal of choice for the Brigadier General, who serves as the leader for the Bullet Works mech group and possesses the power to control the adrenaline levels of his allies to improve their attack, strength, and mobility. And number 1350, Highline Guns Empress, a 1-slot advanced support spirit with the effect Move Speed Up. The Highline is a speed-type unit which features wide-range features and lock-on technology, with it being the mech utilized by the Guns Empress, who serves as the leader for the merc group Panzer Crown, her possessing almost inhuman movements thanks to her uncannily high synchronicity with her arsenal. For our last title of the day, we have Sakuna of Rice and Ruin, which released in 2020 for the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and PC. That was developed by Edelweiss, a Japanese indie studio primarily consisting of 2 people, who are otherwise known for the 2014 shoot-'em-up Asta Breed, and published by Marvelous. It follows the spoiled harvest goddess Sakuna being banished from her home to an island alongside some outcast humans, the gameplay being split between 2D action stages and a farming simulator, the end goal being to explore and clear the island of the demons inhabiting it, whilst growing rice to keep yourself and the small group of people fed. The game would end up doing really well, managing to sell over 1 million copies and getting very positive reviews, and in addition to a couple of spin-off games currently in development, it also got picked up for both a manga and anime series, with the title also marking the first time Edelweiss managed to make somewhat of a name for themselves outside Japan. Like the previously discussed Daemon X Machina, due to this being a title that launched after the release of Ultimate, the only things taken from it are 3 spirits, which were added as part of a spirit board event to promote the game. Those being, number 1488, Sakuna, a 2-slot ace primary attack spirit with the effect Battering Items Power Up. The game's titular protagonist and the orphaned harvest goddess princess that, due to being fairly spoiled, is quite lazy and doesn't care much for their responsibilities, who is sent to the island as punishment for accidentally destroying the god's rice garner. Number 1489, Coco Roa, a 1-slot advanced support spirit with the effect Weapon Attack Up, an inventor goddess and Sakuna's best friend that built the automatons which guard the capital, with her eventually coming in to help Sakuna's efforts by building tools to help automate the rice growing process. And number 1490, Tama, a 1-slot novice support spirit with the effect Transformation Duration Up, Sakuna's blade familiar that raised her in place of her parents, originally serving as the familiar to her father, with him assisting Sakuna on her journey, along with occasionally sharing stories of her parents and acting as the middleman for trading rice in exchange for goods from the capital. And with that, we finished our look at the last handful of third-party franchises in Smash. As for how they rank in terms of their amount of representation, The Tower, Rayman, and Rabbids are tied 153rd with 65 other series, SimCity, Assassin's Creed, and Warframe are tied 109th with 41 other series, Fatal Frame, Undertale, and Sakuna of Rice and Ruin are tied 88th with 18 other series, Kunio-kun, The Wonderful 101, and Daemon X Machina are tied 73rd with 12 other series. Shantae and No More Heroes are tied 62nd with Art Academy, Art of Fighting, Brain Age, Dylan's Rolling Western, Famicom Mukashibinashi, Metal Slug, Nintendo Badge Arcade, Panel de Pon, and the Robot series. Culdcept and Shovel Knight are tied 54th with Balloon Fight, Custom Robo, Galaxian, Nintendo Labo, The Mysterious Murasame Castle, and Virtua Fighter, and Tetris and Cuphead are tied 47th with Chibi Robo, Samurai Showdown, The Legendary Starfy, Wrecking Crew, and Duck Hunt. After this, there's only one episode left for the series, which will cover all of the content that's original to Super Smash Bros. So I hope you look forward to the finale. But until then, subscribe to the channel if you want to know when that or anything else I post comes out, and thanks for watching.